Hey, what's up, folks? How's it going? This is Abhijit here, and welcome to Devops Challenge Hub. So let's start with today's interview question. And today we have some interesting questions on DevOps Workflow for identity access management. So the first question is, how do you use IAM roles with EC2 or Lambda? So we have already discussed this. So for EC2 and Lambda, we don't create user. We don't create user and then uh, username, password, and store it on the EC2. We don't do AWS configure on EC2, right? We don't hard code that in Lambda. Like we don't create a user and hard code it in the Lambda. We create a role. So role doesn't store any password, etc., right? And temporarily, when it assumes that role, that time it gets a temporary password from AWS, and it does the job, and this password expires after some time. So first we create IAM role with required permissions, then attach role to EC2 instance, and EC2 uses a role to get temporary credential automatically. No need to hardcode AWS access key. Same for Lambda. Lambda also we create IAM roles with permissions for service Lambda needs. Maybe Lambda wants to write into database or S3 bucket. So you give that permission. Go and create the role. So here identity access management, you have like user group role policies. Go to roles and then create role, and then select AWS service. There are 5 different trusted entity: service, account, web identity, SML, and custom trust policy. So you select AWS service use case. Maybe from EC2 instance you want to upload S3, upload to S3 bucket from EC2 instance. So select EC2, allow EC2 instance to call AWS service on your behalf. But for S3, AWS S3, maybe you want to give full access, or whatever customized access you want to give, that also you can select. So let's go ahead with the full access, then click on next. And this is what it is, like give some role name, allows you to instance to call AWS service on your behalf, and this is the trusted entity. Version, statement, effect, allow, action is STS assume role. STS assume role. So this is an Amazon token service, DSS token service. Principal should be there. Service is easy to AWS.com. And then permission we are allowing, permission policy is full access. Then we can add tag, maybe EC2 instance with only production tag will be allowed. And then you create a rule. So then EC2 tags with maybe production will be allowed to upload to particular S3 bucket, or it will be able to do all the operations on S3. So this is the way you create a role, and similarly for Lambda. And there are other options also create role. You can select AWS account. You can select another AWS account ID, and that another AWS account, some user you want to give some role. So you can create that role. Web identity. Web identity we'll discuss in the next question. Then SML we already discussed. This is for the corporate identity, single sign-on, right? We have Google sign in using Google, sign in using Facebook, instead of creating your account every time in your every application. Similarly, like in corporate, also they have 100 different applications. They don't want to create 100 different accounts for the user. So single sign-on, create one account for the corporate, and then using same account you sign in everywhere. So that is SML federation. Then we also have the custom trust policy. Here you can add custom trust policy. So let's go to the next question. How do you manage permission for Jenkins deployed on EC2 to access S3? Jenkins deployed on EC2. So again, same thing. You create a role for that EC2 instance, and then attach that role to EC2 instance. When you are launching EC2 instance, attach that role. That also you can do. You can create a role and attach that role. If you have not attached the permission here, so for one particular instance, you can attach that role. How do you secure access to AWS service in CI/CD pipeline? This one we'll discuss later when we go to CI/CD pipeline section, because it covers enable IAM role for service account, Then environment variable or secret manager to inject credentials securely, rotate credential regularly, apply least privilege principle, only allow necessary actions. Then OIDC integration with tools like GitHub Action, assume role dynamically, logging to cloud trail. So all these, once we go to CI/CD section, we'll be discussing in more detail. So not covering here. How do you manage IAM permission for containers running in ECS case? This also will be covering under ECS case section when we go to container service and Kubernetes service. But it's the same thing. You create a role and attach to the task. Create a role for the task. Create IAM role with required permissions, and then attach that role to ECS task definition. Okay. Again, we'll discuss this in more details in that ECS case section. This one also will be covering in the ECS case. Next one is what is a Web Identity Federation in IAM, and what is the use case? Like, why do we need this? What is the use case? So let's go to the Web Identity Federation. Allows the user to be federated by specified external web identity provided to assume this role to platform action in account. So web identity, it can be like Google, Facebook, etc. And then Facebook is given application ID, and then click on next, etc. So why do we need this? What is the use case? Web identity lets you trust external identity provider like Facebook, Google, Amazon, or OIDC compliant provider to authenticate user. Then lets the user assume an IAM role and to access AWS resources without needing AWS credential. You don't need AWS credential. Like for example, you have mobile app application and where you are allowing user to sign in using Facebook login or Google login. In the mobile app of yours, you are allowing user to sign in using Facebook or Google. Now this user wants to upload some file and this file has to be uploaded to S3 bucket. How will you do that? So here Web Identity Federation will come into picture because this user has signed in using Google login or Facebook login, and this user wants to upload some file, and that file has to be uploaded to Amazon S3 bucket. So you don't want to create for each user AWS account, right? So you want to do Web Identity Federation. So high level Web Identity Federation, basically like you go to Facebook developer console, get that app ID, because you have to provide that app ID from the Facebook developer console. Then add that Facebook and identity provider in AWS. So you click add provider. So create a provider. Then create an IAM role for federated user. Then you create a role. Choose that web identity, whatever you created. And then you add the permission. That ST put object, the DynamoDB only access, that kind of permission you give. And then your app request with temporary credential. Your mobile app performs following flow. User logs in via Facebook SDK, get Facebook access token. App calls AWS STS to assume the role using that token. Okay. So then it will be able to upload the files to the bucket. So that's the use case. So use case is clear. You will be able to explain to your interviewer. This is the use case. It is getting used. Okay. So let's go to somebody is create a Facebook app, then add Facebook as an identity provider in AWS. Like I did here, Facebook as an identity provider, web identity provider, and then create an IAM role with a trust policy for Facebook. Then your app gets a Facebook token and uses it to assume that role. And AWS STS will give the temporary credit. So let's go to the today's quiz section. What is the main purpose of assigning IAM role to EC2 instance or Lambda function? Why IAM role we are giving? Because to allow service to interact securely with other AWS resources. Your EC2 instance should be able to upload to some bucket. If you don't give permission, that EC2 instance should not be able to do that action. Or that EC2 instance should not be able to run some script to launch some other EC2 instance or launch some script to send emails. Right? When you use some Python script to do that activity, it should not be able to do unless you explicitly give that permission to that particular role. So answer is B. How do you secure access to AWS services in CI/CD pipeline? Use IAM roles with limited scope and temporary credential. Obviously, you won't use root credential. You won't be creating IAM user for them. You'll be giving some roles. How do you manage IAM permission for container running in ECS or EKS? So you create a role assigned to task. Use task roles in ECS. IAM roles for service accounts in EKS. Service account. So you create a role for service account in EKS and task role for ECS. So this will see in more details in when we go to ECS EKS section. So we are going one by one. We started with basics. We are going one by one. And once we reach to ECS, we'll be discussing. We'll again come back to IAM in identity access management and we'll discuss. So that's it for today. Hope you like this video. Please like and share. And please also subscribe to my YouTube channel, Devops Challenge Hub. And also follow Devops Challenge Hub on LinkedIn page. And I got organized quiz and daily quiz contest every day. So please participate in that. And also subscribe to my WhatsApp channel. Follow my WhatsApp channel for regular updates. Thank you for watching this video and see you again in the next video.